All right, good morning, everyone. I'm Justin Smith of Casper Fire Department. I'm here to introduce Chief Chris Walsh, Casper Police Department. Today, Chief Walsh will be giving a statement, some details and information relative to yesterday's incident at Casper College. At the conclusion of his statement, he will field questions, follow up, and in addition to that, once we conclude this news conference, Chief Walsh will be available for individual interviews. There is a sign-up sheet that is circulating the room. If you're not already on it, please locate that and get your name on there. We'll provide 5 minutes of individual time for each news agency so they can get any additional follow-up questions answered that they would like. We will be strict on the 5 minutes, and we'll be, try to make it so everyone can get the story that they're looking for, get their individual stories rather than a homogenized version. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, there's Chief Walsh. Apologize.
Thank you. I know that many of you have been at the prior press briefings that we've had, but I'll just rehash some of it. I'll be able to provide much more information so that everybody has a good understanding of what occurred yesterday. But on Friday, November 30th, at just about 9:06 a.m., Casper Police Department received a call and was dispatched to the old science building. The initial call was a traumatic injury. It wasn't long after that we received information that there were people being stabbed. With that information, obviously, we've got an evolving situation, and we reacted to it as we would an active shooter situation. Once that was issued, every law enforcement officer in the county responded to that location. In all, the initial response was about 33 law enforcement officers from all different agencies within the county, and those officers arrived within minutes of that initial call. Very quickly, once the officers arrived, they located 2 males in room 325 of the old building. One male was dead, one was still showing some signs of life. Security sweeps were being conducted by the patrol teams that were in there to make sure that there was no other violence being committed, that there were no other people that were injured. During that time, teams from the Casper Fire Department and one of the medical center were brought into the location to see if any life-saving measures could be done on the individual that was still showing some signs of life. They were unable to render any aid that would turn the situation around, and that individual died there in the room as well. As this was all unfolding at the college, CPD received a call that a woman had been stabbed on Hawthorne Street. So there was also a large response being sent to that. As the investigation carried on in relatively very short time, it was determined that there was a relationship between all 3 of these individuals. They all knew each other. The suspect was Chris Krumm, a 25-year-old. He was the 25-year-old son of the victim at the college, Professor James Krumm. The female on Hawthorne was Heidi Arnold. Heidi and Professor Krumm lived together at the address on Hawthorne Street. The suspect, Chris Krumm, lived in Vernon, Connecticut. And what our investigation shows at this time is that the suspect committed the murder on Hawthorne and then drove to Casper College. Once he got to the college, he carried a compound bow into the building hidden underneath a blanket. He also had 2 knives with him. The suspect stepped into the classroom where Professor Krumm was getting ready to begin the day, fired 1 arrow and struck the professor in the head. Professor Krumm got up after being knocked down from the blow from the arrow, and even though mortally wounded, he fought the suspect off. The students in the room were all able to escape during this altercation because of the courage of the professor. Final details of that fight aren't clearly known, but what we do know is that the suspect turned the knife on himself, inflicted multiple self-inflicted stab wounds, and then drove a knife into the professor's chest. Very difficult time, very difficult situation, particularly for, I can't even imagine what the students in that room had to have gone through. And I don't know that there's going to be a quick recovery from that, but I can tell you that the courage that was demonstrated by Professor Krumm is absolutely without equal. And maybe that'll bring some comfort to people. There is no indication that there's any other conspirators. The suspect acted completely alone. And at this time, the investigation now will focus on determining just background information on the people involved. We've reached a situation where the crime scenes are in the final stages of being wrapped up. There won't be much more to be done on those. We'll be releasing those scenes as soon as we can. I would like to thank and just put out my appreciation to all the CPD officers that responded to that. It was an exceptional response. And then all the officers from within this county that showed up to help the Casper Police Department at the college. We had officers from the Sheriff's Department, all the local agencies. Also, we had federal agents show up to assist us and state agents show up to assist us. And that was invaluable, and it just demonstrates the cooperative nature that law enforcement has in this community just to make sure that people are safe. The medical response is also exceptional. Casper Fire Department, the medical center, were able to come in even when the situation was far from stable and assess, render what medical aid they could, but they were there and available should we have needed something more. And I just wanted to show my appreciation to them. The Casper College staff was outstanding in their assistance in evacuating large numbers of students and faculty to safe locations. And the governor's office has reached out and extended any assistance that we may need. So it demonstrates that Wyoming is an incredible community. And situations like this obviously bring everyone together, but it's important to keep your prayers for those at the college, those that had to endure this, and the families of those that are lost. At this time, I'll take any questions.
Can you repeat the name and the relationship of the victim on Hawthorne? And then also, is there any sort of motive that you know about yet?
The motive we're still trying to sort out, so I can't give you specifics on that. Heidi Arnold was the name of the female. And the relationship there, she lived with Professor Krumm.
Not married, though?
No, not married.
And it was a romantic relationship?
Yes, it was.
When you said the suspect is from Connecticut, do you know yet when he arrived in Casper and how long he's been here before this took place?
Well, we don't know precisely. We don't suspect he's been here for very long. Our best guess right now is he showed up possibly on the 29th here in Casper.
Was he staying at the house at the time?
No, he was not. He was staying at we found registration at a local motel.
And do you suspect that he came out here for the purpose of killing these two people?
Right now, we don't have any information on why, but it seems likely.
Did either Heidi Arnold or James Krumm know that he was in town?
I can't answer that.
Are you reviewing any sort of emails or text communication that could shed light on a motive?
Well, we're looking into all those different things just to figure out the background of what might have driven this to occur. And then the reason I'm telling you I can't tell you right now is just because I don't know exactly.
Do you have any indications whether this was something that had been planned out for a long time, or was this something that was fairly recent as far as the planning goes?
And there's some preliminary information that this may have been planned for a few days prior, and I don't have anything more specific to that, but those are some of the things that the detectives will be putting the pieces together in the days to come.
Do you know if any words were exchanged between the suspect and the professor before the attack took place, or while it was taking place?
I don't.
Did the suspect leave any sort of note, either a suicide note or some sort of note explaining his motivations?
I believe that there is, and we don't have them yet. They're still in parts of the scenes that we're working on before we pull those out and go through them and see what they've got to say.
Did any of the students try to aid Professor Krumm?
There's indication that there were several people that tried to aid the professor in this whole thing, and some of those included students, also other faculty members. There was the door into the classroom had been shut, and ultimately locked as it was shut. There were people trying to render assistance. Just goes to show the nature, I guess, of our community, because it's a deadly situation and people were trying to get in and stop them from being injured.
Chief,
No,
can you
it's
describe the actual weapon itself? You mentioned it's a bow.
The initial weapon was a compound bow, so anybody that's familiar with a bow that would be used for hunting, it's the type that has pulleys on it and multiple cables. Not just your standard wooden bow. And then the follow-on weapon was a large knife.
Approximately how long that knife, I believe?
I really don't know how long that knife was. It was a very large knife, though.
Which one of the two men were still found with some signs of life in them?
The suspect,
When you say the door locked, was it an automatic lock when it shut, or did the suspect lock the door?
the suspect didn't lock it, and it's a standard door. I think the lock was just still engaged. You know, I have to turn the locking mechanism to make it so that you can open.
How long do you believe do you have any sense of how long the attack lasted at the college?
No, I don't. It was not a real protracted battle.
Did you say the knife? It was a knife at Hawthorne Street? Which weapon at Hawthorne Street?
It was a knife.
And where on the body was she stabbed?
She was stabbed in multiple places on the body. The upper body, she also showed signs of defensive wounds. And some of those specific details will be uncovered after an autopsy is conducted.
Was she found in the street as was reported?
Yes, she was.
She was employed at the college, Heidi Arnold.
She was also a faculty member at the college.
And so do you think the attack happened outside, or did she make her way outside? Or
Evidence at the scene shows that at least a large portion of the attack happened outside.
So she was an instructor as well?
She was also a professor there.
Does Chris Krumm have any sort of criminal history?
No, there's nothing significant on his background in the criminal history.
Did you say how many students there were in the classroom?
I didn't say. The report that I received yesterday was between 4 and 6, and we were still trying to sort out exactly how many people were in there.
No students were injured? No students were harmed?
No students were harmed. No one else was injured in the event throughout the entire day.
Did Chris have any possible medical conditions that may attribute to this?
Not that's known to us right now.
What kind of relationship was there between Chris and his father? I mean, were they getting along before this, or were they estranged, or do you know at all?
It's difficult to say. I don't think they were very close.
do you know what Chris was doing in Connecticut, what his job was, or what he was?
It was a lineman of some sort.
What does that
A
mean?
lineman of some sort.
Like with cars?
No, with some type of communications line.
Oh. Did Heidi or James Krumm have any, do they have other family in town that you know of, or?
I don't believe that they had any family in town. They each all had extended families, and they've all been notified by the coroner's office.
Have all the families been notified then?
Yes, they have.
What were the ages of Mrs. Arnold and the professor?
The professor is 56, and Mrs. Arnold, Heidi Arnold, 42.
And how old was Chris again?
25.
And what was the city you said in Connecticut?
Vernon.
Vernon.
Is that Chris with a C or a K?
With a C.
Do you happen to have any idea how long Mr. Krumm and Heidi worked at the college?
I only have a rough idea, and that's from speaking to Dr. Nolte, and I believe Professor Krumm may have started there around 2000, and then Heidi a few years after, maybe 2004.